Very good. Nice to see everybody. It's we have a large crowd today, so it's quite nice. I hope nobody got flooded yesterday. So online going okay? Everything good? Good, great, thanks. Yeah, training. So Vassa has ended. It's my 11th Vassa, so it's been a monk now, so officially 11 years. It's actually 11 years, it's going to 11th, so that's how we count, as how senior you are in the monastic tradition, how long you've been almost reborn into this. You get rebirth when you take a new name, and you sort of, you take your robes on when you become a monk. And so now it's my 11th year being here in the monastic training. So it's quite interesting. It was usually the rainy season, the Vassa period, is quite quiet in the monastery. This year there wasn't a big difference for me. We're building the retreat center, and as everybody knows, building industry is a bit in the shambles at the moment, and we're not exception. And so the buildings are coming. We're going to have a retreat center coming, and slowly, and I think it's all of this community here, and there will be others overseas and coming here and using our facilities. So it will be like for you as well. You can come to the monastery, deepen your practice, like we do, the monastics, the same way we do. That's why we have the Rains Retreat, to deepen our practice, to really study and meditate. And that's why we have a retreat center coming. So you can come to the Newbury, stay with us, stay in those new beautiful places. Once they will be built, but they might be a bit delayed, or they are already delayed. As a matter of fact, we should be done now. We should be there celebrating the Katina, pretty much there. But it didn't happen, so it doesn't matter. Things take time. That's its nature. The Buddha taught us anicca, impermanence and unreliableness of this samsara. Nothing is under control. We have to remember that. Same was like, I was thinking, what should I talk about? And I really don't have a topic usually. And Ajahn Nisarno just told me what should I talk. So he's the teacher now in the monastery. So I said, he was just leaving. He was here yesterday, and he told me before he left, Mudito, why don't you talk about the saying you find out during the Vassa? I find interesting saying I was reading somewhere, and it struck me as quite interesting. There was a saying that we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. It struck me quite that it's true. We don't see things objectively. We see things as we are, through our own lenses, our own views. And I was here during the Vassa when I gave my only talk here, where I gave the talk about Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Sutta of non-self. And it ties in quite nicely with that even your perception, which is one of those things in the khandhas, your sanya, it's the Pali word. Sorry, my mouth seems to be a bit dry. Your perception doesn't belong to you. But we think that the way we perceive the world, whatever it is in this world, that is objective. That's how it is. And it's quite interesting that even so, as a monk, we see people who have sometimes they perceive things quite strangely. Some people actually have not just anxiety, but some people might have paranoia, for example. And I wouldn't say that person with the paranoia would have a wrong perception. How can I say somebody comes to me and say they have paranoia, that they are perceiving these things like really differently? really odd perceptions. You cannot really say it's wrong perception. It's a different kind of perception. But we all do that. We all perceive things in this world certain way. We give values to different things. We really, for example, our family, we really care about them, and then something happens to our closed ones. It really affects us strongly. Whether it's somebody sick, we really need, try to help them, or somebody dies. The connection is there. We have a perception that they are part of us. And these days, obviously, it involves our pets, our dogs. And seems to be sometimes, interesting enough, there's dogs been dying. Recently, we had 2 dogs died, and one got buried. One is going to get buried soon, and there's another one who's coming on the pipeline. I think it's going to be buried in the monastery soon. It seems to be sometimes our pets are more important for us than our people grieve them more than sometimes I feel that families. People are like, oh yeah, grandma died, it was time, but then the pet dies, and people are really struck with sorrow. But again, it's your perception. Your pet became really important part of your life. So there's no, how could we say that it's that perception is wrong? There's no wrong perception. There's different kind of perceptions, but always remember, but there's nothing ultimately true or truth in your perceptions, and they don't belong to you. It's hard to say, hard to see it, but once you start meditating, you start actually seeing that, not just, even in the beginning in your meditation career, I remember I used to have these really weird perceptions, like your body feels like it's floating up in air, or like your body sort of moves about. You're sitting still, but the body has these kind of weird movements, whether they're true or not. Sometimes the body actually does move around, but quite often they just you have these weird perceptions because you're sitting still and the mind is not used to that. It starts to expand or do these kind of weird things. Unfortunate thing is that they disappear. Once you keep meditating for a long time, I don't know why, but they always seem to disappear as years go by as a meditator. So while you have them, enjoy them. They're fun. But there's nothing. People sometimes make a lot out of them. This thing happened. And as a teacher, he's like, yeah, I heard that before. It's quite common. But people perceive that, it's something, something special is happening to me. And the same, it's interesting that once the mind becomes calmer, and there's this kind of, you start seeing everything in more kindly eyes. Everything becomes sort of more beautiful when you keep progressing in a meditation. And obviously, you don't have as much time as monks and nuns, but then that's why the retreat centers are important, and you can come and deepen your practice, spend more time just looking what's happening in your mind. And when the mind becomes calmer, things start looking more beautiful. Your cloudiness of the mind, your perception, so you just sort of clarify your perceptions. And then that's another thing which is quite nice to be a monk, is that obviously because we don't use money and everything is offered, everything is you take care of us, we have a lot of perception of kindness and generosity comes towards our way. So it's, for us, that's one of the reasons why it's very easy to meditate, actually, because we are sort of recipients of your kindness. So can you imagine how nice it is to be a monk and nun, because we receive not just material goods. There's only so many towels and bars of soap or toothpaste we can use, but we still receive all of those things because it gives you happiness, obviously, and that's why you give, that's why you support Buddhist Society, that's why you give dana. But it gives a tremendous happiness for us as well. So it's interesting. I can perceive my perception in a sense that quite often it gets a bit bleak in the monastery as well. Days are blend into another. It's especially during the rains retreat. You wake up in the morning, you meditate, go and have a little breakfast, you do your lunch, go back and meditate. It just becomes this. You don't know what day it is. You have no idea. Days blend into each other, and you tend to forget what we're doing here. But once in a while, you just sort of like you realize, wow, my perception, it really seems to be very good today. Like the food tastes really nice. When you're happy, when your mind is calm, the happiness blends into anything. So even the ordinary food, which we pretty much get every day in the monastery, I mean, it's really nice food, I'm not saying that, but the food just, it doesn't, especially because we don't move a lot, you sort of lose your appetite a bit. But then once in a while you realize, I think my meditation is going well. People ask, quite often they ask us, how do we know our meditation is good? You know your meditation is good when you start perceiving things as if they were more beautiful. There's certain kind of beauty arises in your mind, and if your mindfulness it's a little bit more strong, you realize that my perceptions have changed. Sometimes they change really a lot. Like you can actually, Ajahn Brahm has this famous story that he was walking in Thailand and walking past the washing area, and all of a sudden he just saw this jet black towel, and he said, I've never seen a jet black towel in my whole life. It's really weird. And he just kept staring at the jet black towel. It's almost like it just absorbed all light. And he just kept staring at it, and then all of a sudden it changed back into color, into normal color, this kind of quite ordinary. And he was just sort of struck, like, what happened? Why is my perception so different? So things like that can happen when you're meditating deeply. You perceive things really weirdly. But even in the beginning of meditation, once in a while you see something almost like glimmer. You see something in the sky which is, I must have done that correctly. So it doesn't mean, just meditation, but if you have a good attitude, if you come from a place of kindness, it changes your perception. It's not, quite often normal life, we concentrate on we want something to succeed. Whatever we do in life, this project needs to be success. It has to be, and we concentrate on how things are going to turn out, and we try to control it. Whereas the more important part should be, what are we doing at the moment? So let's try to change that. And I've working on it as myself, and I've noticed that I've get better and better at it. Whereas I don't really think about too much the future. This is how it should be, and it causes you a lot of stress. Enjoy what you're doing now. And it doesn't just mean work, it also means your health or your sickness. Just appreciate your body as it is. Enjoy your sickness. If you don't try to push things away, if you don't live in the future, so to speak, we can take a lot more than what we think we can take. I have a friend of mine who's got a tremendous health issues, and he's just said, I just start getting anxious about it, and I don't know how much I can take. And I said, look, hold on a little bit. Think about how you have it now. Can you take it? And if you really bring your attention to your body or mind, how it is now, you realized, yeah, I can take this. It's quite bad, but it's, if you don't think about the future or make predictions about the future, how it's going to get worse, there's actually a lot of we can take. And it actually makes it a lot easier. So we don't live too much in the future. There's this big, like, oh, live in the present moment. What does that even mean? It means these things like health, for example. It's a very concrete thing. A lot of us, we have health issues, and we start thinking about it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah, perhaps it will, but can you take it now? This is important. We are dealing it with more now than what's going to happen in the future. And then if you perceive the world that way, then a lot of things become a lot actually easier to take. Your perceptions change. Yeah, I can take this. I can actually live with this. So that's one of the things, like we don't truly see things as they are. We see how we are. So whether it's yourself, you're jumping in conclusions. There's another. I was listening to this one podcast, and this quite a famous scientist. I just don't recall what she studies, but it's something to do with how the psyche and the body goes together. And she was saying that she's got a lot of anxiety herself, and she's social anxiety. She doesn't want to really talk to people she doesn't know or be in front of other people. And she always assumed that her anxiety came from her childhood. She had this strong view. She knows, obviously, like, my family's like this or something. She said, I think it came from her father. She had this explanation in her mind. I know I am this because of those things happen. So she swore when she was a girl that, when I have children, I will take care of my children so they don't have these anxieties producing things like what happened to me. My father was like this, and that produced anxiety in my life. I'm an anxious person because of this. So now she has 2 teenage daughters, and she said, I can see anxiety in my 2 teenage daughters. The same way she's got anxiety. And she put all the best efforts of being a good mother and, caring, listening to their daughters and make sure that they wouldn't have those kind of things, what she had to go through in her life. Yet the daughters have anxiety. We make up stories, even of our own minds. I am this because these things happen. But is your perception right? How do you know? How do you know if your anxiety is produced of those things? You make up this story and you firmly believe into that story, and that becomes you. But is it true? Is there truth into it, in that ultimately? No, there's not. It doesn't work that way. But we have these preconceived perceptions that that's how it is, and it becomes you. So that's why, like I was teaching the characteristics of non-self, the Anatalakkhana Sutta a couple of weeks ago. That's why perceptions, you just sort of, we have these little, or we have the Buddha's teaching, and we can take any little snippet from all of these suttas, like, for example, the Anatalakkhana Sutta, where you exist. And when you look at it, when you truly sometimes we say contemplate, but like you just sort of rest on it, you meditate and let these things sink in, and you start seeing that it's like a mirage. That's what the Buddha said about your perceptions. Perception is like the simile of the perception is the mirage, where you see somewhere something which is, for sure you see it. Your perception is right. That's a mirage. Like you go to a desert and you see the water simmering there. You cannot say it's not there. You cannot say I come to you and say, no, that's not, your perception is wrong. No, it's not wrong. Mirage means it's there, but you perceive it wrongly or differently how it is when you actually get there. That's what mirage is. It's not right or wrong. It's just different kind of perception. And it's same about yourself. We perceive things as we are, but we also perceive things ourselves as we are. We sort of backtrack from this moment and we see through the lenses what we are now, what happened, for example, in the childhood, or what happened during some events in our lives. And we make up a story out of that. And that, in your eyes, your perception is the truth. But there's no ultimate truth in there. Obviously, the big things for like what makes you is perception it's a bit difficult. But since I was given this topic, I have to keep talking about it. But mostly, actually, we live in sankharas would be, we live in these choices we make. So that's what really actually big thing for you is your will. Which is, again, I'd like to give a simile where what will means, what volition, what sankhara, what choices, actually sometimes they translate as choices. We think we made these choices, but they're not your choices really, they're just cause and conditions. And the best simile for that I can give you is almost like doors. You have 3 doors, whatever choice you have. You have to choose out of 3 doors. And from those 3 doors, you go to different room. And we almost choose all of our lives. We think we have all these decisions to make. And we go from room to room. We open one door. We don't really know what's going to be there. But we predict, if I choose this door, I go to that room. And that's how it's going to be when I live there. When you go to that room, again, there's going to be 3 doors. The next choice is coming, and the next choice. And so all of these doors multiply. It becomes exponentially more difficult to backtrack what happened. Yet, same way, we think that if I would have chosen one of those doors, this would have happened. But it's multiplying so much all of these things that we in this room now, this is your life at this moment you're living. You cannot backtrack. There's no way, because it's exponentially more and more difficult to go backwards. But yet we think that if I would have chosen the door number 3 instead of 1, you can somehow go back and then things would be differently. You think that there is going to be these choices make us happy. We think that if our will would be smarter, if our will would be smarter, if I would meditate more, if I would be mindful more, I would be more aware and I would make better choices. It's one of those traps where experienced meditators can fall into it. You think you can become smarter by meditating. Don't think that. That's one thing where you can actually start seeing that it's when you're meditating long enough. We are just absolutely out of control. Well, I'm out of control. My mind is out of control. My will, my choices are just out of control. It's these doors, they don't have any labels really. I'm just going through life, just walking through doors and thinking, I don't like this how it is. Oh, this is really good. Oh, I was really smart. I made the right choice. But it goes back into that idea of wherever you are, this is good enough. This is the best place you have at this moment. There wouldn't be any other way. There's no way of thinking you could have chosen smartly in the past. Or there's no other way of thinking that you will be somehow better if you choose differently of all of these multiple doors to go through in life. So don't think meditation makes your life ultimately happier. That's not what we hear. We don't try to make ultimate choices in life. We don't try to make ourselves happy. What we're changing is actually our perceptions. You look things differently. You start seeing things that this is good enough. And that is part of why it's important to be mindful and meditating. In that sense, the perception still doesn't belong to you. Somebody had to taught you these things. And you don't change the circumstances, your karma, but you change the way you perceive it. So in that sense, what changes when you meditate? We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. We see things differently because our perceptions are different. It's the same kind of life. Life is the same. But we realize that then we can look into the more beautiful part of that life we have. The cake is there, the ingredients, let's say the ingredients are there, but we make the cake. There's no other ingredients any better in life. And this is the ingredients we were given. And it doesn't come from your parents. It doesn't come from the society. It comes from your own kamma, your karma. And you make the cake out of that karmic past. It doesn't belong to you, and there's not much you can do about it. Perhaps you can nudge it a little bit. Sometimes we say that. But then, every moment when you start thinking, this is not how it should be, pull yourself back a little bit and say, well, maybe it shouldn't be like this, but it is. Can you take it now? This is sad, but can you take it now? Dogs die, can you take it now? People get sick, people get old, but can you take it at this moment? Not in the future. When you're in the future, perhaps it might get really, really difficult. But if you bring yourself back here in this moment, you can take it. We can take a lot. So there's a lot in Buddhism where people say, sometimes we concentrate too much on the negativity. And that's why perception is actually quite nice, because perceptions give you an indication, nice indication that you are going the right path because you are a happier person. I've met a lot of forest monks, whether in Thailand and mostly in Thailand, the forest monks. I've lived with Ajahn Brahm obviously for many years, and when you meet these beings who are really good meditation and they on the path, like really on the path, they're very light people. There's just people perceive sometimes perhaps the monks are serious and all that, and sometimes the tradition is there that you have to be quite serious in front of others. But when you meet them sort of in the backstage, you go and it's just joking around. It's just like a really goofing around with a lot of monks. And sometimes it's interesting. So because their perceptions are very light. They're very, very light people. They're very kind, and there's just this jovial kind of kindness with really on the people on the path. And the Buddha's teaching is that everything is suffering. You would think that these people are very miserable people. Everything is suffering. No, the thing is that their perceptions are so much kinder. The same with with Buddha, and the Buddha was teaching obviously the suffering and how everything is suffering. But they said Buddha had a lot of compassion. There was this. You can just imagine there's like the most compassionate person there. And for me, it's sometimes you sort of you need a bit of a story to that. But then there's like, for example, that story of the Bodhisattva. We don't have the Bodhisattva statue here, but the Buddha was tormenting. He was before he was the Buddha. He was a Bodhisattva, and he was really tormenting himself. There's this where he used to stay in the sun all day and in lying naked in the and outside all night, and really, I was starving himself, and that he fainted at the end. He was just really, his hair was coming off and all that. And somebody asked, did you ever have hatred when you were towards your body when you're tormenting yourself? And by that time he was the Buddha. He said, I never saw hatred in my mind. So sometimes when we have actually, most of the people have a lot of anxiety, we have a lot of almost hatred, almost this kind of like, I don't like my body type of thing towards our own bodies. But even bigger than that, we have hate, not even love-hate relationship. We have this maybe not disinterest, but really dislike towards our own mind. We don't like our own minds. And that's how your perception is. And that it's almost self-fulfilling thing how life then becomes. You don't accept yourself as it is. Obviously we try to be kind person. We try to be kind and caring person. But it starts from your perception. If you perceive yourself, I'm actually okay, I'm a kind person, you don't have to be the happiest person in the world. That's not what are we aiming. But if you perceive yourself, I'm okay, I'm good enough, my mind is good enough, I have these perceptions from the past, but even those I can be at ease with. I have done things perhaps in the past which are blameworthy, but it's not your fault either, and you perceive them perhaps more strongly that you should be perceiving them. So change the perception even towards yourself. Don't have what can that's the same thing. We don't really try to change ourselves. This is not what we're here for. You have very like go back to the story about the lady who had anxiety. You have these deep ingrained things, and we may tend to make stories out of that. And this is how it is because of those things. And quite often we have this kind of explanation from the childhood. Be kind towards those perceptions. They are there. They're not wrong per se. They're not right or wrong. They're just perceptions. It's like a movie and a movie set when you have the screen and you look at them. Have a little bit of distance to those perceptions and be kind towards that. And then life becomes lighter to live. So I guess that's my talk today on perceptions. I don't know what else to say, but it's interesting. Yeah, perceptions are a big thing, and I thought it was a nice saying from this Vassa that we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And that's my talk about perceptions. And now we call for the Q&A. And today I'm asking questions and everybody else can answer. Okay. Should we start with online? Yeah, that's fine. No, nothing online yet. They might come later. Is there anybody has any questions? Yes. Welcome back from your retreat.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for the talk.
Always.
Okay, so events happen in someone's childhood.
Yep.
They make a story out of it. They then believe that's who they are because of the perception, and their future behaviour is based upon that perception. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So you're making up your future.
Yeah.
All the time like that. Yeah.
And so it continues to generate the perception because of the story in the head.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the and okay, you say have kindness towards the perceptions, but some of those stories that people have in their heads are pretty strong.
Yeah.
And so how do you dissolve those perceptions? Like, how can you really set your mind to dissolving them?
Well, yeah, thanks for that question. Yep. The only thing really is to just keep sort of stepping back a little bit from those and just keep adding kindness towards that. To be in all honesty, that's the only thing we can really do. There's no really, until you have a really deep meditation experience, like nimittas, or even if you go jhanas, you go really past your body and mind, then in jhanas even. That's when you really only step, because then you step outside of the Ajahn Brahm as the simile of the tadpole and the frog. When the tadpole's swimming in the water, you never know what's not water, because you're in the water. You're in your world. You don't know what's outside of your world. Only time when the tadpole crawls into the frog and jumps out, you can realize that was water. Until then, we sort of just adding a little bit of Band-Aid on the wound, but that's the best we can do. But so we sort of perhaps adding a little bit of sugar adding a little bit of sweetness into it. But that's really, I would say, realistically, the best, most practical thing is that when you have those things and you're looping in your head about your perceptions, you're looping in this world of yours, stop. And what that means is bring your perception, perhaps, or your attention to your body. You sort of have to bring, and that's why, like in meditation, we bring our attention to something, whether it's your breath or you can do your body scanning on those things. Quite often we in this little world of ours, and it's difficult to be outside of that. It's difficult to even imagine what it means to be the frog outside of the water. But to actually just tell you, stop. I'm playing this movie and I'm believing it. Stop believing in that movie. You can just stop. Even if it means 2 minutes sitting and feel what it feels in your body. That is actually stopping for a while. And you just sort of look around, what was that about? Like who is this? What are these stories again? And hopefully you become a bit more skilled with those kind of things, and whatever comes to your people, different people have different anxieties, or like you said, stories from the childhood, and making up these things, and we perceive them as truth. If you just don't give them so much value, see them as just a perception, but it's not. You don't have to own it. It doesn't really. You making up a story which might not, perhaps it's not really true. That's what it is. It's just a perception. See it as a passenger vibe. See it as like from the window of the bus where these are the scenery. Have a distance to your perceptions. But yeah, kindness really is a big thing. Change your perception towards that. Add, kind of, oh, yep, I can see that. It's coming, it's creating this sadness again, and then, in your mind. So add kindness towards that. That really is the best thing to do. And try to see what is around us. This is where we are now. This is the room we're in. Okay, this is the moment. It's as good as any. There's no other way. So it was quite interesting. That's what I thought. I took the story of Annika, who said the story, the scientist who's got the 2 daughters, that the daughters had anxiety, even though she was trying, and she's a really kind person. I've listened to her other talks, and that the daughters still had anxiety, and she was trying to do the best that they wouldn't have any of those things, and yet they still ended up being like that. So maybe it's part of your biology. Yeah, a lot of our brains are in our stomach. We have a lot of nerve endings in our stomach, and if your stomach is upset, you're anxious. And we think there's something subjective about being anxious. Must be something in truth, but it's actually your stomach playing up. And I personally am quite aware that I have stomach problems, but that's how it happens. We make up stories and we think they're true. Anything online?
I do have a question from online. Thank you, Ajahn. Rick from Indiana asks, Ajahn, how do we apply this teaching when there has been real trauma that is impacting the present? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I was trying to go back to, but the traumas, it's difficult to, because we tend to play up those stories over and over again, and the traumas pop up in, but okay, meditate. That's the best thing you can do. The worst thing is to stop meditating. Like the deep traumas, I think the best thing still to do is to say, can I take it now? Okay, it's bad and the trauma is there and it has happened and there is no denying it. But can I take it now? And where is it perhaps in your body? Sometimes we lock these traumas, and sometimes we've seen things as a monk, and where people have cancers in certain places, and they cannot express it. For example, we had one of our conquerors in a monastery in Western Australia, and they had I think there was really a child which they hoped for a long time. And unfortunately the son then got into the drugs, and I could see that the father was really suffering, and he couldn't express it. He was really one of these tradies, tough concreter. He could not express it. There was this tremendous sadness in the father. And then the son died. He was about 20 something. He was really trying to do everything for the son, and we could see sometimes the son comes to the work site, help in the monastery, and it was the father was really trying to, almost like, come on, just get on with it, just we'll and but he just wouldn't. He didn't have that, and then he just kept going deeper, and then he got in the car accident while he was on drugs, and then not long after that the father had a tongue cancer, if I remember correctly. It was in the mouth. I think it was tongue. Sometimes you feel like this cancer is almost like it's expression of that frustration, that thing that he could not say, put it out loud, how frustrated he was. And it expresses itself as a cancer. Maybe sometimes a breast cancer in women, you feel it in your chest, and it might produce a cancer in your body. So we have to see what there's like indications in our bodies sometimes, what happens in our mind. And it's actually bodies indicates quite often. We have certain kind of tensions very often in the same places, whether they're in your jaw or neck or your chest. You carry these pains in your... And add kindness add the loving kindness, whether it's that big trauma where this person had from the online. They express themselves in certain places in your body. So physically learn where they are in your body, where they express. And then actually just touch that place, whether you're on your bed, going to sleep, and you have the anxiety, it's okay. And it just gets easier to live with that thing. The anxiety is there, but it's not as bad. You just have to persevere with it for a while. But that's actually, you're physically you're being kind towards your body. See it where it's in your body. See where it expresses itself. Don't carry it around, because who knows, might cause cancer or other things in your body, problems in your chest or in the stomach. So in that way, learn them. They are there, but you learn from it. If you push it away, it won't never get better. Very good. Anything else?
Should we take a question from the audience? Anyone?
Yeah, thanks. That's good. We know you're very knowledgeable.
Each individual in the born creates impression each one has his own impression of the universe.
Okay.
By using your sense organs, from the day you're born, you create an impression of the universe. Every time you create impressions, you create impression about yourself.
Yeah.
Once you create outside, same time you create yourself. The body you have is actually belongs to nature. It's a biological unit. But your view of self is really the impressions you have made from the time you're born, and some are necessary for survival, some are based on me, mine, and myself. And those are the impressions. They vary from person to person, and you can say, as you said, it's a illusion. It's not maybe it's
like
a way
mirage.
you see, but it's not quite right.
Yeah.
As Einstein says that if somebody, it's a man of science, he says that if somebody see one as a separate unit in the universe, it's an illusion. So Einstein says, right? So these are all illusions and delusions. We learn to live with it. But there are illnesses that come from these abnormal thought processes, because psychosis. I mean, if you, these ideas, as you say, that's a mirage, it's an idea, it's not true. But some of those things go beyond the one's ability to handle. Like, say, if you are sick, you say that your neighbor is waiting to poison you all the time. Or somebody's telling you, you're the ugliest man I've ever seen, I'm going to kill you. So these ideas really trouble people. These are also created in the mind.
Yep.
That's pathological. But those things can be treated with medication.
Yep.
We can give, it's all
Absolutely.
We can treat this psychosis.
Yep.
So, but there is no medication to get rid of this idea of separate self.
Maybe meditation is the medication.
That's right. There's no medication, maybe medication. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a meditation that will help you to get rid of this view of separate self.
Yeah.
But when it's get abnormal, there's medication.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very interesting because the reality from madness is a fine line.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chaya. It is true. I mean, there's medication, obviously, and I would never say that don't take medication. You know, you're perceiving these things that is like which none of us we perceive, and so there's, you know, like, okay, go and see a psychiatrist and see if you can. It is interesting where people think that we have this like ultimate soul which is unchangeable, this and that, but like you said, it's illusion. It is a made-up thing. So if there's something wrong, perhaps, I'm not sure I believe into the thing sometimes that we're missing something in our brain chemistry, and then because of that, things are not right. But medication helps. How it helps, we don't really know, and nobody really knows how it helps. But I like the idea that our body belongs to nature, but our mind also belongs to the nature. There is sort of this we make things out of our mind. We perceive it as a certain way, and as if there's ultimate reality there, and we can somehow cure our minds. You know, obviously pathological. If there's problems, problems in your mind, which are in a sense that you could be a lot better if you see psychiatrist, you take a medication, but our sort of normal, everyday, day-to-day life, we still living in this kind of similar kind of perceptions. They might not be as strong, but are they true? Is there anything more true in our perceptions than your neighbor's perceptions, which might be quite different, whether how we see the universe? Yeah. I don't know. I seem to be going in circles, but yeah. Thanks for that. It's obviously true. It's nothing ultimately true somewhere. The way we perceive things. Okay, let's take a short one so we can go for the lunch.
Thank you, Ajahn. There's an online question. Ajahn, I have a terrible anxiety to go for an endoscopy. Please provide some guidance how to address this. Even thinking of it gives my heart racing, and I had to cancel it once due to anxiety. The anxiety also creates a cascade of physical manifestation in the body.
Yeah. Well, it can't be that bad. I've done it a few times. I think it starts somewhere. You have to sort of acknowledge you have it, and I think it starts from there. If you actually acknowledge, yep, this is happening. Can I take it right now? It's going to happen tomorrow, so you start worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Just see at this moment how it is. You see the nervousness come into your mind. Just be with that nervousness, the perception of being nervous. Just see how you feel with that. See what it feels in your body. See how you can make change it in a sense that if you perceive it differently, can you look at it with kindness, that nervousness? Is there, like, nobody can tell you it's not there and you don't worry anything, and it was like as if that's going to take it away. Be that kind of person that you would like to somebody else to be towards you. That somebody who holds your hand. Be that towards yourself. I think, then I don't perhaps have the right thing to tell you, but if you know what's the best for you, and you be that person to you. Be that person who holds your hand, who tells you the right things. Do that to yourself. And then that perception perhaps it's easier to take at that moment. And you go from moment to moment. Yeah, anxieties, they're difficult and they seem to be there, and I know people sometimes have to cancel these, but it's important to do that thing. Don't cancel it. Try to be brave. You can do it. A lot of people have done it and nothing happens. So, but be kind towards yourself. Okay, so we're going for the communal lunch. So no more time for anything. But it was so nice to see everybody. So many people here today. So I perceive you kindly. Very good. Do we pay respect to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha? Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantang Abhivade Swaka Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamma Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami